So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at number 20. Is it 26? Is that what you told me? Okay. So number 26. So number 26 in your book. 2/5 h minus 7 equals 12/5 h minus 2h plus 3. What do you think we should do first here?
Combine the variables on the same side.
Okay, let's combine like terms if we can. And if we notice here, I've got this and I've got this. So I need to combine those. I'm going to leave the left side alone. So 2/5 h minus 7 equals. Now I need to combine 12/5 with negative 2.
Or you can write these answers.
So I've got 12/5 and I need to combine that with negative 2. So how many fifths is 2?
5.
Oh, 10.
So I've got 12/5 minus 10/5, which is how many fifths, folks?
2/5.
2/5. So really this is 2/5 h plus 3. Now real quick, questions on what we just did. So now goal, variables on one side, numbers on the other. So what do you want to move? Do you want to move the h's?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to move this 2/5 h to the left side. So on the left side, 2/5 h minus 2/5 is 0. What does that leave me with on the left side?
-7.
Negative 7 equals, oh,
3.
3. True or false?
Oh,
False. So this is a
no.
no solution. Good.
What does the all real number sign look like again?
It's just an R with an extra line.
That's
So
kind of
just
like
do an R
I
with an
with
extra
a
line.
squiggly at the
It's
end.
if you're wondering about the all real number sign, the question was, all you're going to do is make a normal R. So here's an R, right? And then just add another line right there. Okay. All right, what's the next one? Number 27. How did that go? Number 27? So number 27, what'd you end up getting there? All real numbers. What about 28? How does 28? Okay.
Or should be.
What about 29? 29, are we good?
Yeah.
What about 30? 30? What about 31?
Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, we did that one.
31, I get one more. Okay. 31?
They catch.
Okay, for those of you that weren't here, we'll go ahead and go over 31. Okay, we actually did this one during homeroom. Okay, 31. All right, 2m over 5 equals 1/3 times 2m minus 12. All right, so what would be the first thing to do here? Distribute, good. And so I end up having, I'm going to write this as 2/5 m. Notice how you can do that. 2m over 5 is the same as 2/5 m. I'm going to distribute, so when I distribute the 1/3 times 2m, what does that give me? 2/3 m. Now for those of you wondering, how do you get that? Just take 1 times 2, and that will give you 2 over 3. Now I need to take 1/3 times 12. So I have 1/3 times 12. What is 1/3 times 12, folks? 4. So I'm going to take 2/3 m minus 4. So now if you notice, goal, variables on one side, numbers on the other. So what's the thing you're going to do here?
Get the variables on the left side.
Get the variables on the left side. So what am I going to need to do?
Subtract by 2/3.
Subtract 2/3 m from both sides. So now I need to take 2/5 minus 2/3. And so I'm going to be taking 2/5, so here's my little scratch paper. 2/5 minus 2/3. What would a common denominator be? 15. Good. How many 15ths is 2/5?
6.
6. How many 15ths is 2/3?
10.
10. So what is 6 15ths minus 10 15ths?
Negative 4 15.
So I have negative 4 15ths m equals what?
Negative 4.
Negative 4. Good. Now, how do you solve that for m?
Reciprocal.
Multiply by the reciprocal, which is negative 15/4. So now on the left side, cancel, 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 cancel. Leaves me with m. On the right side,
Cancel 4.
cancel 4s.
8.
So I have the negative of negative 15. We know that two negatives make a positive, so my answer is 15. Alrighty, that was number 31. How did 32 go? Bad? Okay, well then let's look at it. Okay, so 32. Let's see what we got on 32. 32, we have 1/8 times 3d minus 2 equals 1/4 times d plus 5. What should you do first? Distribute. Okay, so let's distribute. So when I distribute the 1/8, you get 3/8 d. Good. Minus 2/8. Okay, I could write that as 2/8. I could even do that. I'll do that for right now. But understand you could reduce that down. On the right side, distribute, and you get 1/4 d plus 5/4. Goal. Variables on one side. So what variable do you want to move? 1/4. Okay, we can move the 1/4. We can move the 3/8 too, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to subtract 1/4. Subtract 1/4 d. Now I got a problem because I've got denominators that aren't the same. So 1/4 is how many eighths? 2/8. So really this is like negative 2/8 d. So what is 3/8 minus 2/8? 1/8. Good. So I have 1/8 d. I'm going to go ahead and change that 2/8 right here to 1/4. And that's going to equal what? 5/4. Good. Okay, next step. What do you have to do now? Add 1/4 to both sides. So I end up getting 1/8 d equals, what's 5/4 plus 1/4? 6/4. Now I'm just going to leave that as 6/4. I'm not going to simplify it to 3/2 yet. How would you solve that for d? Multiply by the reciprocal, which is 8/1. So then now, cancel, cancel, and that leaves me with, on the left side, d. On the right side, I need to simplify this. Okay? 4 goes into 8. How many times, folks? 2. So I end up having 6 times 2 on the top over 1 times 1 on the bottom. What's 6 times 2 on the top? 12. So really it's 12/1, which is just 12. Are things going better now? Kind of getting the hang of things a little better. Okay, what's the next one? We have 33. How did 33 go with the decimals? That go okay?
Yeah.
What about 34? Good?
Wait.
30.
No. Yeah, never mind.
Okay, 35?
I don't know what that
35, let's see what we got. Should have gotten, what is that, 9.4k equals negative 18.8, yep. So it should have been, I think, negative 2.
Oh,
Somebody
negative
get
2?
that?
I got it.
Okay, good.
I just got
That is.
2.
What about 36?
No.
Do I need to look? I think I need to look at 36 just from looking at that one. Those of you that got it right or got it, you can check and see if you in fact got what we ended up getting. So I end up having 5 because notice here I have some brackets.
Keep brackets.
Especially when it's fall off.
I haven't had it fall off yet. I've had 3 fall off, but they're all the
Okay, those of you that already answered this, anybody want to venture a guess as to what you think the answer is? What do you think?
9.5.
9.5, what'd you get? 7.5?
No.
7.5.
So I've heard, okay, so I'm just going to write this down here. So I've heard 7.5, I've heard 9.5. Any others?
No solution.
No solution, okay.
That's what I had.
So let's see. We're going to see who ended up getting this one right. Well, and maybe, actually, I probably should write it a little bit darker for you to see.
Confusing.
Well,
Probably
they,
not
will they
any
be able to
else.
see it? Because don't you usually only record the...
Yeah, but I'm just, this is for our information. So let's go ahead and look at this. Very first thing to do. Distribute, but the question is, where do you distribute?
4.
You distribute the 4. Okay, that's your very first step. So we're going to leave everything else alone. Now, why we started with the 4 is because if you look at this 5, yeah, we can distribute it to the 2p. I understand that. But then when we get to the -4 and the, what do we do there? So that's why we have to start inside. So everything else I'm going to leave alone. Now notice what this is. This is a -4 that I'm distributing. So -4 times p. And then I've got -4 times 5, which is -20. Now, you could distribute, even though I'm going to advise against it, because there is still one thing we can do inside the parentheses, and what is that?
Like terms.
Yeah, like terms. We want to combine like terms. So I've got 2p and -4p, which is -2p minus 20. And that's going to equal 25. All right, next step is now to do what with the 5? Distribute. So when you distribute the 5, what do you get?
-10p minus 100.
-10p minus 100. And that's going to equal 25. What do you do now?
Add the 1.
Add the 100. So I end up getting -10p equals 125. Yeah.
When you were like in the dream, why didn't you make that -10p?
I did. Right
Oh,
here?
no.
Okay.
But like before that.
Up above.
But like why would it be -10p?
Okay, we aren't going to distribute the 5 till we get down here to the green, till we've simplified everything inside the parentheses. Okay? You don't want to distribute this 5 right here until everything in the brackets is simplified down and all like terms are combined. Any other questions? What's left to do on this one? Divide by -10. So what does p happen to be, folks? Negative 12.5.
You were all
Oh,
wrong.
you were wrong, Kelsey.
Well, no, the thing about it is, if you think about it, you all were fairly close.
Except for me.
Because you all have the 0.5s in there.
And
So
the
no,
and the
there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong
I
with
just
making
had
a
a
mistake.
+100
Yep.
instead of a minus in the very yep.
I didn't put the negative on my 20.
And so, yep, and that one little negative can end up following you through the whole problem. Okay, so then you have 37 and 38. How did those go?
38,
Bad.
I don't
Couldn't
know
figure
what
out
that
either
is
one
on
of
the
them.
They're
bottom.
bad.
I need
Okay.
38.
I need 37.
I think I got the equation right on 37.
So, do we want to look at 37?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so 37, 3 times the lesser of 2 consecutive even integers. So our very first step on 37 is to go ahead and write what 2 even integers would be. First one, I'm going to let be n. Second one, n plus 2. Now, notice what it says, 3 times the lesser. So that means which one would be the smallest? N or n plus 2?
N.
N's the smallest. So 3 times that would be 3n. Is equals 6 less than. So remember 6 less than. Whenever we had a less than, I leave a space, and then I'm going to put minus 6. 6 times the greater number.
6 times n plus
So I'm going to put the 6 times n plus 2 right here. So I'm going to go ahead and let you get that down. And as you're writing that down, I want you to think to yourself, what is the very first step I do? So what do? Distribute. Good. So I end up having 3n equals
6n plus 12.
6n plus 12 minus 6. What do you do now?
like terms.
Like terms. So I've got 12, negative 6. So I still end up having 3n equals 6n.
Plus 6.
What do you do now?
Put the variables on the left side.
Yeah, let's move the variable to the left since I've got 6 all by itself. So to move it to the left, what do?
Minus 6n.
Subtract 6n. So what's 3n minus 6n? Negative 3n equals 6. What do you do now? Divide by negative 3. So n equals negative 2. Now we're not done because it said to find the integers. So n is negative 2, which means that's my first even.
0.
My next even will be 0. Now, for those of you wondering, how would you find your next one? This is it. I'm going to put negative 2 right up here for n. So then if I put negative 2 here for n, I get negative 2 plus 2, which is 0.
Oh, by greater you mean
Yep.
an actual value.
So let's look at 38. Okay, 38 was a little difficult
Yeah,
too.
try to do this one.
I didn't even try.
Okay, so let's work through 38. Chris has saved twice the number of quarters that Nora saved, plus 6. The number of quarters Chris saved is also 5 times the difference of the number of quarters and 3 that Nora has saved. Write and solve an equation to find the number of quarters they each have saved. So first of all, let's start. Chris, I'm going to call that C. Twice the number of quarters that Nora saved, plus 6. So what would twice the number of quarters Nora saved be?
2n.
2n. And then 6 more than that, plus 6. Now, does everybody understand where that one came from? Let's look at the second part. The number of quarters Chris saved is also 5 times the difference. So I could put 5 times. And then I know I've got the difference. So the difference is going to be a parentheses in there. Difference implies you're going to end up doing what? Subtracting. Okay. Of the number of quarters and 3 that Nora has saved. So and they kind of worded that last one a little bit funky.
That's what confused me. That
And 3. So now, how would we go about solving this? Got some ideas? Yep.
2n plus 6 equals 5 times n minus 2.
Notice that each of these equals C, correct? So this is one of those things that I could say that 2n plus 6 has to equal 5 times n minus 3. Now remember, n is the number of quarters that Nora has saved. Now what I need to do is go through and solve this. So the very first step is to do what, folks? Distribute. Much better. We're getting the hang of things now. So 2n plus 6 equals what? 5n minus 15. So what do we need to do now?
We get the ends of
Get the ends? Okay, so
the subtract.
which one do you want to move? The 2 or the 5?
Five.
The 5? Okay. I would probably move the 2 just to keep things positive, but I heard a couple of you say move the 5, so let's go ahead and move the 5 here. In which case I get negative 3n plus 6 equals negative 15. What do you do now? Move the 6. Good. So I end up minus 6 minus 6, and I get negative 3n equals what? Negative 21. What do you do now? Divide by negative 3. So what does n equal? 7. So now what does 7 tell us?
7, maybe a 7 quarters.
Nora has 7 quarters. Now for those of you wondering about Nora, that was Nora's number of quarters was n. Now notice they want you to find the number of quarters they each have saved. So we know that Nora has saved 7 quarters. Now make sure you label. Okay, I don't want to see Q, I want to see the word quarters, because Q could be anything. Okay, so 7 quarters. Chris, now the question is, how do you find how many Chris has?
You take Nora times 2 plus 6.
I could either put 7 in the top equation right up here, or I could put 7 in the bottom equation right here. It doesn't matter. So I could either take 2 times 7 plus 6, or I could take 5 times 7 minus 3. So how many quarters does Chris have? 20. Very good. Hardest part on that problem, once again, are writing the equations. Okay, I know when we first started doing questions, we didn't look at 22, 23, or 24. Do you need me to look at either of those?
No. Not me. For which one?
24 and
24? Okay, so let's go back to number 24. (24) 2 times the least of 3 consecutive odd integers exceeds 3 times the greatest by 15. What are the integers? First step, we need to list them with variables. So the first odd is n. What's the next odd?
N plus 2.
N plus 2 and
N plus 4.
n plus 4, because remember the 2 and the 4 indicate the spacing between odds. So 2 times the least, what would that be?
N.
2 times the
Oh,
least.
2n.
2n. Okay, a little worried on that one. There we go. 2n exceeds 3 times the greatest by 15. So equals, what would 3 times the greatest be?
3 times n.
3 times n plus 4, because this is the greatest. N plus 4 is the greatest. Now I know that 2n exceeds this by 15. So I'm going to add 15 here to make them equal. What do you do now, folks?
distribute.
Distribute. Good. So I end up getting 2n equals 3n plus 12 plus 15. Yep. Let's combine like terms. So like terms, 12, 15 is what? 27. What do you do now? Move the variable, so let's subtract 3n from both sides. So you end up getting negative 1n equals 27. But remember, I don't want to know negative 1n, I want to know what n is. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by negative 1. So what does n equal?
Negative 27.
Negative 27. Now let's see what the problem asks us. The problem asks us, what are the integers? So by writing these down at the start, all I'm going to do is this. So my three integers, first one, negative 27. Next one is negative 27 plus 2,
Should be negative 25.
negative 25. Then negative 27 plus 4,
Negative
negative
23.
23. So there you go. Alrighty, questions? Okay, 23. 4 times the lesser of 2 consecutive even integers is 12 less than twice the greater number. Find the integers. Okay. So on 23, 2 consecutive evens, how can I represent them? And
And plus 2.
plus 2. It says 4 times the lesser. What's that going to be?
And 4n.
4n is 12 less than twice the greater number. So 12 less than, remember, we leave a space and we put minus 12. And then twice the greater number. 2 times
n plus 2.
m plus 2. Think you can finish that? Okay. Good question. Oh, no, I didn't know if you got it. All right, so do we think we're a little clearer on solving equations? Now, what I'm going to go ahead and give you is I've got a worksheet, but this worksheet is not going to be due tomorrow. It's actually going to be due Monday. Okay, and I will give you time in class to work tomorrow. All right, so that's going to be the plan. Questions?
Is there a
Oh,
date?
4 days.
Here it is.
That was
Expiring